Hello everyone, welcome to the Statera podcast. Tonight I'm joined by Dr. George Christos. Thanks very much for being on.
Thank you.
And thanks for having us at your house as well to do it here. We're going to look at talking about ideas and where they come from. Are they something that's created within the brain or manifested from somewhere else where we tune into them, I guess. So before we do, George, can you just chat a little bit about your background and what you've done in the past?
Well, I'll sort of skip a lot of stuff. Like in high school, I went to uni at UWA and I studied physics, and then I did my PhD at Oxford in particle physics, and then I started evolving, mainly because I had to come back here to Perth. I had to sort of give up my particle physics and do something else, so I evolved into programmer, chemist, worked in chaos theory, neural networks, mathematics in sport, and eventually I finished up in the neuroscientist. But I'm basically a theoretical physicist who just likes to think about most things.
Sure, you keep it there. Yeah, sure, cool. So, we're going to look at discussing ideas and something I guess you've given a bit of thought to, and so are you able to go through some of them and what I guess brought you around to actually start thinking about that as well? Yeah.
Well, I actually have a theory of how the creative process in our brain works. Basically what happens is when you store memory in your brain, you store them in multiple neurons, and different memories can share the same neurons. The information is actually stored in the link, in the little wiring that connects the neurons.
Okay.
But
not the body itself, not the neuron body itself.
Not the neuron body itself, it's actually in the chemical junction of where the two neurons sort of talk to each other.
Yeah, right.
And that strength actually increases. If you use that path more, what it does is it increases it, so makes that memory state stronger.
Okay.
But anyhow, one of the consequences of this, and you can easily see it by just doing it's mathematics. You just put patterns in a very simple neural network and system. You put patterns in there. The network will generate combinations of those patterns, and they become like in stable states. The problem is, and the problem was, that when people first noticed them, the number of combination of states grows so much quicker than the number of states you're trying to store in that neural network system. So a lot of people classified these states as spurious memories, and I become interested in them. I was working with neural networks, and I become interested in them, and in particular, I come across a paper by Francis Crick, who's known for the discovery of the structure of DNA and how it passes on its code. He'd written a paper about the possibility that we were reverse learning during dream sleep, so we could get rid of these states. So I thought it'd be a nice thing for me to have a neural network system that had this reverse learning process, and I could test it. And I started doing that, and when I first did it, it started to agree with him. But when I did it for longer periods, because the brain is a system that goes on and on. It's sort of like awake, then it sleeps, reverse learning, whatever, in dream sleep, learns again the next day, then goes reverse learning. So when I did this longer and I made my neural network system so it was more like the brain, I found that the number of spurious memories was not that large, and actually reverse learning did not decrease these spurious memories but actually increase them.
Right, okay.
So what happened is that during this reverse learning dream sleep process, it increased these states. Then I started to think these states are actually important. Instead of being a problem, they are actually where we get our new ideas from. So what happens is when you store memories, you generate them, combinations of them, and then you dream, you actually generate even more. And the thing is that the way the brain learns is is that it receives some information through its senses, it'll process that, and if it reaches an attractor, then it means something. Because if it reaches an attractor, that means that a memory is being retrieved, a memory is being strengthened, because when the neurons fire at the same time, the link between them gets stronger. So what I thought then is that these spurious memories are actually what we're going to be learning on the next day. So in a way, we're generating the creative states which we're going to observe on the next day and following. And then what the brain does is, if it hits one of these states and it doesn't like correlate with all of the other things you'll have stored in your brain, you won't think much of that idea. But if that idea, which is a combination of things, suddenly twigs with you, it
resonates with you.
Yes, it resonates in a way that actually now you strengthen it even more, because the other ones you'll just sort of throw away, you won't even think about. In fact, you're only conscious of 1/10 of what your brain does anyhow, but your brain is probably sort of constantly just doing this, and every now and again one of them just comes to the fore. And this is where the creative idea comes from. But in saying that, I mean, Einstein is known for, has said that imagination is more important than knowledge. But what I'm saying here is that imagination is based on knowledge, because you need the knowledge to generate the spurious states that combine that knowledge in some weird new way. And you need that knowledge to also be able to realise that this new spurious state is now something that may be important, that it is a good idea,
handy in the future.
that it is a good idea. So and that's basically my theory of like dream sleep, and also the way the brain generates some new ideas.
Right.
And I think everything comes from within inside the brain.
Okay. Yeah. Because there are conflicting views also that thoughts consciousness comes out from somewhere else, as like an antenna, but the brain picks it up, like the antenna, I should say. It's like a receiver of consciousness. Can you see any angle for that? No,
I don't. I actually really think that the whole process is like internal. It's very personal. It's based on your own, memory states.
Sure.
I do believe that people, by talking to each other, can pass on ideas that may help you generate some new state. Brainstorming works well. When people get together, they try to solve a problem and they're throwing things around, and then they come up with something. But I don't think that the idea itself comes from some outside unknown. I think it's already there in your head. It's generated entirely in your head, and it's already there actually before you even have it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
And dream sleep is the process that generates this state.
Okay. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a guy called Jacques Fresco? I know he was sort of associated with Einstein. He's still kicking today. He's like 97, 98.
I haven't heard a lot about him.
Yeah, he's a social engineer as well, and he's looking at getting Venus Project up and running. And quite an interesting guy. But his thoughts on that are the same as that. Like, imagination is created by things that you've seen. He said there's no such thing as just pop luck, something coming into your brain. Any invention or any progression of technology is really just being formed off what's happened in the past.
Well, yes. Okay, that's sort of true. I used to know a really crazy guy who used to talk about this idea of his, and I didn't understand what he was saying at the time, but he used to talk about real space, and he used to talk about venturing in the psychological space. And what he meant is that we have knowledge which is firmly known to us, like measured, established by science. Then we have ideas outside of this. This is in the psychological space. This boundary of knowledge moves in very small amounts and grows, and it grows from what is known.
Sure.
Okay, so that's what that idea
It
is.
just perpetuates on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. But what I'm saying is that you can have sort of creative ideas that actually may be outside of the psychological, the real known space, knowledge outside of the psychological. You just can't find a mapping to come back to tell all these other people on how to get there. It doesn't become established. It dies.
Yeah.
It dies. You need to be close to that surface.
Sure.
But this is not to say that you can't have ideas outside of that.
Yeah. Okay. And so when the testing you were doing, what type of testing were you doing for this when you were looking at and researching it?
I just had a program. I can't remember how many neurons it had. Maybe it had something like 1,000, and I just taught it patterns.
Right.
And then what I did is I tested to see how well it knew those patterns, and I measured how strong the spurious memories were, and then I allowed it to reverse learn. Reverse learn was a process where they're very similar to what happens in the brain. Your sensory input is turned off, and you receive stimulus from a set of cells. They're called the REM-on cells, and they send us like a stimulus to your neocortex, and your brain processes that as if it's receiving sensory input, and when it settles to an attractor, that's what it always does. When it settles to an attractor, instead of learning, it actually reverse learns, and we sort of think that may happen because the neurochemistry of the brain completely changes from one like chemical system into a second one when you dream. And it's also like, when you're dreaming, you can't really recall the dream. It's only when you wake up, and then by going backwards, you can just get like a few moments of what might have happened in the dream. It's a process where it's evaporating. So I was just testing this on this program. I used to have the screen and the lights would be flashing, and I was to watch it and so look at the results. And what I found is that was on the opposite of what Francis Crick was saying, that reverse learning, instead of decreasing the number of spurious states, it actually increased the number of spurious states. But I also learned that the spurious states were not really spurious, they were the creative states. They were also the states of what you would learn the next day. You can't fall into an attractor without having it there first. The brain's memory is like hills and mountains and valleys. And what happens is that you input things and it just falls to the bottom of a valley. You can't even start to form a valley until it's already formed. And dreaming is the process where it starts to form that.
Okay, yeah, right. So do you think that process in itself has had a say and a push in our evolution as a species as well? Like helping with brain development to a point to where we are now, where we believe we're the most intelligent that's been on this earth so far. But is that just something that's facilitated this constant progression, or is that something?
I think all mammals have this. All mammals dream. All mammals have this reverse learning process.
Sure.
So they all require. You need to be adaptable. This allows your brain to be adaptable to changes in the world around you. The world is not fixed. It's constantly changing. This is why mammals are so much better off than most other things. I mean, ants are very intelligent. They're very intelligent when they work as a group. But mammal on its own can learn something new. Ants, I believe, can learn something new, but it's normally just changing from being a worker to a fighter, whatever, soldier to. Right. But mammals can adapt, and mammals need to adapt. And this is this dreaming process, REM sleep, learning, reverse learning, enables the brain to be constantly adaptable. And I believe you can't have artificial intelligence without having some form of this, because otherwise, if your brain kept learning what it knew, if it kept learning its valleys, the valleys get deeper and deeper, and soon that neural network, that brain just becomes obsessed with those valleys, and it's unable to do anything else other than those valleys. It's so crucial that you have this reverse learning process that keeps the landscape rugged, keeps moving it around, so you can remold it, you can adapt and learn new things and evolve.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the subject, but neuroplasticity, does that fit in with that at all? Like with creating new pathways in the brain? I mean, it sounds like it's totally...
It doesn't really fit in. It's a sort of like a separate thing. That's just to say that, you know, like if you lose some like neurons that perform some function, and the brain is capable of rewiring itself so that it can find some other pathway so it can achieve what it needs to achieve.
Right.
For example, someone may have what's called blind sight, where they really can't see something, yet if you ask them a question whether they think that there was something there or not, they actually get the answer right.
Okay.
Even though they can't see it, the brain has developed some sense where it can sense it anyhow, even though the person's not aware of it.
Sure.
So
that's really that formation of like gaining extra strength in the senses that are still left.
It's basically the wiring. The information is not actually stored in the neurons. Okay. It's actually stored in the wiring.
Right.
It's actually stored in the wiring, and this is the important thing because that enables the brain then to rewire itself. It's constantly rewiring itself. Like, I mean, synapses, links between neurons where they talk to each other with this chemical transition. That's important as well. You want a chemical transition so that you can vary it. So it can be intense or not intense. It can be inhibitory or it can be excitatory. You need that chemical reaction. That's where the memory is stored. And the brain is really just developing new links to somehow establish that way of how it may have done something before. The brain is constantly doing that. Do
you think though we as human beings can get to a stage where we can even amplify that, the brain's ability to do that, or is the brain always going to be at the pinnacle and it's going to be always one step ahead of us as far as our conscious thoughts and what we can do with the brain?
I think the brain is one step ahead of us, and I think if we really think about it, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but we are basically just robots, which our memory store is our lifespan, and we just react to input as it comes to us, and it's governed by the brain. I'm not even sure that we have free will. I'm not quite sure what free will is. I think we have the ability to stop doing something. We can have a bad thought, and we don't carry it out. Maybe that's where the free will, something's cutting it out. But I think we're basically robots, and the brain is well ahead of us. We're only conscious of 1/10 of what the brain is showing us now.
Sure. So you believe that it's just giving us enough information to keep us going, keep us living, keep surviving, just so itself as an organism can keep continuing? It just needs to give us a little bit of information though. Just
you're sort of like you're now actually like you're almost going to hit into the subject of memes, which is another thing that we could have almost spoken about. Memes are ideas we transmit between brains.
Sure. Yeah.
And they actually have the same properties as genes. They make copies. They can mutate.
Okay.
They can, like an idea can change. I tell you something, you tell someone else, you change it a bit. If it's a good idea, it lives, it evolves. If it's a bad idea, it dies. So it has the three basic things that genes need for to evolve. So memes evolve. So ideas evolve. So the brains talking to each other is actually like taken over. It's not even one brain anymore. It's actually brains talking to each other. So there's even like a bigger like system out there too.
Okay.
It's actually influencing you.
Yeah. Right.
As a person.
Yeah. Okay. So as a collective, do you mean, or just? Is that?
Well, I mean, just the way that external world, I mean, connects with your cells. That actually. Changes you, influences you, and you're trying to like influence it. I mean, you're trying to, spread memes. You're trying to, to put the ideas out. Because these things are evolving. They're actually making you do it now. In fact, memes are more important than genes now, because when genes go wrong, we use memes, ideas, to fix them.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
and people who should die, you know, because, you know, they have bad genes, don't die because we put them in hospitals and we find cures for them.
Yeah, it's because we're using those memes.
We use
Yeah,
memes,
yeah.
and this is why things have evolved,
Yeah.
like mobile phones and internet, because
Sure.
we want to be able to communicate, copy, spread it to as many people as we can. You know, fucking mutate. Who cares? Just to get the idea out there, someone can change it. Something can happen, and that's now the driving force, I think. And I think that's what's going to drive our future of our brains.
And this massive push in technology we have, and then you're facilitating into that. So where do you think that could end up going? What stages do you think we could go through with that? And have you got any idea of to what potentiality we have with that?
I don't know. Sometimes I'm sort of scared that maybe we could evolve, you know, accidentally evolve artificial intelligence somehow that just takes us over. I mean, maybe it's already happened. You know. I mean,
it could be argued that it already has.
I mean, the internet may be that intelligence that's driving us. I mean, you see young people always there on Facebook and doing things, and they're being driven by this crazy thing out there in like cyberspace.
Sure. On the phone, in the car, you know, when the shit
Yeah.
is trading in life and death matter.
Yeah, I'm
absorbing
not care
some
if
other technology.
yes, a killer of the child or something. I've got to
Yeah.
get this meme across.
Sure.
So in some ways, maybe it's driving us, but I actually envisage a possibility of maybe some other form of artificial intelligence developing through our like knowledge.
Sure.
But I think that you're going to have to need this process of learning and dreaming, so that the thing doesn't become obsessed, that it can be adaptable.
Yeah.
You're going to need something that's able to decrease its memories. Like if you kept learning the same thing, you just become stuck in the same spot.
But could they not develop a software for that though? To do that?
Yeah, it's software, yes, you can develop a software, you can do all that, but the thing is that computers work in a serial fashion. They carry out one instruction, then carry out the next instruction. A brain is what's called a parallel computing system. It's very difficult to build one because the clogs of the brain are the links. So this makes it extremely difficult. Because I have thought about this, and it's really the links, and there's so many of them. If you have like if the brain typically has say 10 billion to 100 billion neurons, it has like trillions of millions of like synapses.
Right, okay.
So you need a lot more of them, and that's what sort of kills the thing. So you can build like a neural network, but you've got to have this adaptability between this wiring. More information is in the wiring. It's not just there's more wires, but there's also you need the weighting, you need all these other processes controlled.
Sure.
So
and that's probably fractal down to who God knows where though as well.
No, I don't think it's fractal. It's just lots of the neuron.
Okay.
Lots of the neuron. But there is some sort of like factoriality in it, because each neuron connects normally to about 10,000.
But yeah, that's what I mean. Could those connections be fractal?
It's fractal going upwards, but not going down. It's sort of like from the neuron, you have like a bunch of neurons. You might have like 100,000, maybe 10,000.
Yeah.
I think 10,000 is like a fair size module in the brain. And you'll have lots of those 10,000s. They could form a bigger clump of, like millions of them. They form a bigger clump, and that's like an organ now that performs a certain function for the brain, and another one over here and there, and there could be bigger and bigger ones. So it is fractal coming out here.
Okay, right, sure. But just not going back within.
No, because it stops at a neuron.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Are the organs of the brain something you really looked at as well?
I have like looked at some, so I have some like knowledge about them, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd like to discuss more, or?
I mean, most people probably know what I would say anyhow, but it's the neocortex that humans have that makes us so different from any other creature, and it's really just like a thin handkerchief folded over the top of your brain. It's folded in such a way that if you were to open it out, it's actually quite large. It's a really large thing. It's a hanky. This is where all the thinking and the like generating of stuff that goes on. Most of the internal organs of the brain, not all, but most of the internal ones have to do with things like vision, you know, storing memory, listening to sounds and stuff like that, and a lot of it's hardwired, walking, etc., etc. It's the neocortex, you know, the top part of the brain that actually makes us who we are, that makes us human.
And it's quite, our neocortex is quite a lot larger in percentage-wise compared to other primates.
Yeah, ours is heaps large. I can't remember what the closest one to us is, but yeah, it's enormous. And when the brain first evolved, there would have just been like a set of cells that just knew about and smell.
Sure.
And then after that, it developed other senses, you know, like touch, and then eyesight, and then your taste, whatever, you know. Sorry, smell and taste probably come at the same time, roughly. And then these other things evolve. But we've now evolved with this thing, neocortex, that we're able to look at ourselves and realise that we have consciousness, a thing that we can't even say what it actually is, but we're aware of it.
Yeah, sure.
And that is, so we're like aware of ourselves, and that's like the really intriguing bit now.
Yeah. Is that something you're looking at into the future? Is that the area you want to be going down?
I have actually looked into that. I have written a book about it, but I never published it.
Okay. Do you think you will one day?
Pardon?
Do you think you will publish it one day?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. I think I'll get involved in something new. I tend to get more excited in new things. Going back to old things.
Was that a constant learning process throughout writing that book, or were you already sort of set in what you knew and then you wrote the book? Or
I sort of become obsessed. No. Actually, the book, the work. This is interesting. I always find that the work actually takes place while you're writing it.
Right.
You're actually writing it, you're thinking about it and how you're going to explain it to someone, and then you think about, is it really true, and you're going over all the facts that you know, all the science, all the knowledge, testing it, and while you're doing that, you're of course mixing up all these states in your head, generating more spurious states from them. Some of them are like good ideas, and then suddenly you start putting them in the book. So actually the book, I think, is never really written before you start the work, and everything is done while you're writing it. And during those stages where I get into intense writing, I almost become obsessed with it. Everything around me is like nullified, and I see it from a different point of view, and I'm just constantly thinking. Maybe it's just in the subconscious of my brain, but these ideas are just constantly flowing about this, and just pop into my head, and the whole thing generates like that. And
so I'm taking it wasn't a research paper style, it was a lot of your philosophy on the subject as well? To go with the science as well, but...
Yeah, it was a combination of like I said, I'm a theoretical physicist. I like to think about things. I don't need a lab, but I can think about things in my head and remain consistent with science. Someone else can do those experiments, I can use them. I don't have to be an experimentalist, and a theoretical physicist is like the only science, or physics is the only science where you're allowed to do this, because every other field, you go into a lab, you measure something, you record it, get the stats on it, fit a line through it, publish it. Theoretical physics is where you're constantly conducting experiments within your own head.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So
and I'm constantly doing that.
Right, okay.
I'm probably doing it right now.
Possibly. So, have you ever looked into why you believe that our neocortex developed to such a great extent compared to other primates?
We don't know the answer to that. And something must have happened that made us evolve to be so different.
Yeah.
It seems so odd that there's no other creature that has a neocortex or has the intelligence that we have.
Yeah.
So it's an open topic. It hasn't been discovered yet.
One of my favourite, it's really interesting topic. One of my favourite theories is from a guy called Terence McKenna, who's he's definitely one of my favourite thinkers. He's a psychonaut as well as being a scientist and linguist and etc. He did a few different things, but he's got this stoned ape theory where he looked at it when that sort of climate was changing in Africa, especially. We came out of jungle campy, came into the land, and it was mushrooms. His belief was that mushrooms and the psilocybin compound within was creating these processes within the brain which were foreign to us at that time, and that really kick-started. He sort of looked at it about 200,000 years ago.
Wow.
And then, developing from there. So, is there anything you can maybe add to that, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we sort of need to have a brain, a neocortex, in order to adapt and evolve and be adaptable to changing environment. And there's there's a lot of creatures out there that want to eat us, and
Sure.
everything's sort of chasing everything else. There's this constant balance on that. So we had to evolve from that point of view. Why we had to evolve to become so intelligent is not clear. Maybe it's the conflict between the humans to human conflict.
Yeah.
Because humans are constantly fighting each other. I mean, even now, is constantly fighting each other. So maybe they had to adapt so much more faster than the other creatures who were so much more peaceful in the world, that humans may have forced this to happen upon themselves. That's entirely possible. This guy's idea is entirely impossible as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, what you just spoke about, I guess we can see it on a physical level, where we see as far as the generations have gone through, how conflict drives, competition, etc. drives, and people are physically becoming bigger and stronger. It stands to reason that would happen on a subconscious level.
I would think, I mean, if you're not up there, if you're not learning quickly, adapting quickly, having children with big brains, you're going to get beaten by the other mob.
Yeah.
So over a very long period. I mean, just look at gangs in a inner sort of city environment. I mean, they have to constantly adapt.
Like the main streets of Perth.
Whatever, I mean.
Outlining somewhere like that, especially.
Yeah, I mean, they're evolving and fighting each other, and you have to adapt. So imagine this going back to the tribal days. I mean, if you weren't smart enough, they got smarter than you, they would just kill you. And the world's always been like that.
Sure.
Whoever can take sort of control with human nature is to try to take control, and whoever has the made bronze first, went out and used the bronze swords and smashed all the other ones up and gained sort of control. And when the Mongolians realised they could fight on horses, they gained sort of control of the world. So it's an idea thing, you see, and I think it is possible that humans constantly fighting with each other may have led to our enormous brains and even to our level of consciousness.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, you see now from the present onwards, you see it's really how warfare shifted to who's the most intelligent now. It's gone from who's got these physical capabilities, or, I mean, it still stands to reason, like you said, you needed some sort of intelligence or some sort of imagination to come up with riding the horses with arrows, or to invent a gun and things like that. But we can see that now. It's definitely progressing. It's still progressing. So whoever's most intelligent is going to come out on top.
Well, we're also now competing in a new world. We're competing in the cyberspace world, and a lot of people actually are working in that environment. That's pushing intelligence as well. Everything's pushing intelligence. This world that we live in is constantly evolving. You have to constantly adapt. You can't just go and sit in the corner. Your mind is constantly adapting. Yeah. I mean, I think that people now are a lot smarter. I would say there are many Einsteins alive now. I would say there's probably 10,000 Einsteins alive now.
Have the capabilities.
Just like the physical body has evolved. Yeah. So that now we have sort of athletes that are so much more capable than the ones in the past. In fact, no football player, AFL football player from the 70s, if they come into the modern era, would have a chance to even last in the team.
Yeah.
So the same things happen and happening with the brain, and will continue to happen.
Sure.
And this constant knowledge, the spread of memes and competition, this thing is just going to accelerate this process. Our intelligence is now growing just within us, and not from generation. So just imagine where this will take us, like in 1,000 years. It's like the growth is incredible. I mean, the last 100, 200 years, I mean, everything we know, almost everything we know has been learnt in such a short space.
Yeah, exactly.
So
after such a long period of
yeah, I mean, you have to wait, Ice Age, the Bronze, the copper, or whatever, you know. It just took thousands of years, for, you know, people even to realise the most simple things. But now it's like it's all out there, you know, like you want to learn it's available, people are prepared to share this information, because I'm not competing with them on the genes level anymore. Yeah. Right, on the genes level, you know, like if we were back in like our like tribal cave days, genes level, if I had an idea, I don't want to tell someone else because I can use that idea to my advantage. But I don't have to do that now because my genes don't care about evolving. I've had my children. I'm happy to spread my memes. I'm happy to spread them and let them evolve.
And not to mention too with those memes, and also we can spread them 24/7 now. There used to be periods of time, especially when you're very localised, where if you didn't have electricity power to be able to talk to someone on the phone or whatever.
Oh man!
Now you can just 24/7. You've just got constant information coming into you if you choose to.
Well,
that never used to be a possibility.
Yeah, now it's incredible, and not just that, you can actually talk to a lot of people at once, and not just one person. It's not like writing a letter. You can put like a whole stack of recipients. Your letter, you have to like lick them all, and George Koga Stanton's wife died from licking too many stamps.
It wasn't even his wife yet. This is a wedding. Wedding invitations.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, but so then you look at that, and it seems hard to really be able to comprehend where that can go on to in the future. Like we've got to this level now where there's just this saturation of information. I can carry around this little bit of plastic, a bit of metal in there, and any bit of information I want is at tip of my fingers. Really, anything that's comprehensible to me, actually, at least anyway. So that's where we're at now. Where do you think we can go with that in the future, or the connections, etc.? How they're going to change?
Hey, look, we will develop the technology so people will be basically have telepathic.
Right. Okay.
Telepathic sort of senses. It will build artificially before we evolve to get there.
Okay.
We will make these things. We'll have like little receptors and transmitters, just locked in our brains. They'll be able to just communicate to each other.
So they're basically ones and zeros you're talking about, having ones and zeros in your brain, a technology of ones and zeros to be able to do that, to facilitate that.
I mean, anything. Information can be stored in ones and zeros. You just have to have a way to transmit it and receive it.
Do you think it's possible we already have that ability?
I think maybe there are some people that have this ability to sort of communicate between themselves.
Do you think that everyone does, but it might just be a select?
No, I sort of have the feeling, like, this is going to sound really bad, but my view is that most people are like really dumb.
Okay.
And there's only a few that are sort of quite intelligent, and then I think this requires something else. So I would imagine there'd be very few people who have this ability.
Yeah. Okay. It's just maybe some part of their brain that's developed differently from birth or what have you, or from conception, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, nature finds a way to do things.
Yeah. Could it just be a mutation? Just a natural mutation?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course. A bunch of cells that don't have any functions, they're just emitting some signal, and someone else has another bunch of neurons that don't have any real function in their body and emitting some signal, and they start talking to each other somehow.
Sure.
So sure it can evolve, but I reckon we will build that. We will have that. So you replace this bit of like plastic that's quite heavy. People will laugh at you that you were carrying around such a big brick.
Yeah, sure.
Because in the future it'll just be a little implant in your head.
Yeah. Well, we see like the Google glasses now and the contacts as well they're using, but this stands to reason, and there's every reason why it just won't keep going further.
Well, you just
smaller and smaller.
Yes, you just basically need an antenna.
Yeah.
You're just going to need an antenna, a little small antenna.
Sure.
And like a transmitter, and it's all available.
What about when we get to that stage and things like privacy? Like how are we going to be able to still affect privacy? Still be able to keep privacy with that?
We'll have to find a way, huh?
But maybe a good thing though as well. Like
this will evolve. This will evolve to take care of all the problems as they happen.
Sure.
And you'll always find answers.
Right.
To any problem that evolves. You know, sometimes I imagine that almost anything that you can dream about will happen one day. We'll find a way to get there. You know.
I hope so, because I've had some pretty cool dreams in my life.
Oh, okay.
That'd be awesome.
But I wasn't talking about those dreams, actually.
Okay, sure. Yeah, maybe one day. Yeah, but the privacy one I just find really interesting, and yeah, I really wonder if that's even going to be an option for us, if that's going to be a possibility. People hacking into your, because you've got that technology with you now, people are able to hack into that. And
well, they're doing all that stuff now. I mean,
well, yeah,
we know that.
NSA stuff and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, privacy is essentially gone, and you know, sometimes I sort of wonder what is private and what is not. I mean, if you're prepared to put it out there, then you've sort of released it in some sense.
Even if you just thought of it
to the
and
public,
expressed it verbally as well.
Well, yeah, that could be an issue. You may have things like they have in the movies where you'll be able to pick up people with bad thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. But I mean, like I said, anything that you can imagine will happen. So I should imagine we'll go through that phase.
Yeah.
And then we'll go beyond that phase.
Sure,
you know?
transcend through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's still part of me that thinks that maybe we'll never get to that stage though as well. I don't know whether something happens environmentally or we just realise, no, we don't need to do this anymore. Maybe this is good enough. Maybe.
No, I don't think so.
I don't necessarily think so either. It's just there's a small part of me that
I actually think the lesson of life and the lesson we were talking about, like being some memories and then spurious memories being combinations of those memories. Now, the same applies to like knowledge, because we're able to spread knowledge. We're able to mix knowledge, we're generating more knowledge, we're generating more questions, the knowledge grows, there's more like sub-knowledge, spurious knowledge, creative knowledge, whatever you want to call it. It just keeps on growing, and I think it just will just keep going and keep evolving. It just won't stop. It won't stop at this. This is actually pretty heavy, man. Because
if it does stop, that's our death, really. Like if it does stop, then there's no point for that organism to continue.
Yeah, I mean the way the world is. I mean the biological world and the memetic world, the one that involves memes. The way they are is the fittest wins. The loser dies, and it just keeps evolving, and it's just like evolving really quickly now because we've opened the floodgates now. Sure. We've got the internet where we can talk to each other very quickly and communicate ideas and generate new ones and spread them to other people, and people aren't so worried about keeping them anymore. They want to spread them. You know, the idea is more important. And that is going so quickly. There's no way that you will even have this in 3 years' time.
Yeah, sure.
Let alone to say that this is perhaps the end of some technology. It won't be.
Yeah, okay.
It won't be, and it won't stop. You know, like it'll get to the little implant, and then something else will happen. Then someone will discover something else, and
fuck. What would that be though? What would it be past some little like? I know they're already looking at nanocells and things that can work within the body and do all that. But there's obviously going to be a point past that they're going to go further than that again, but I don't know, I can't even comprehend what that would be.
Well, the more you know, the more you ask, The more you know, the more you want to know, and it just keeps going. It's an infinite fractal. Knowledge is an infinite fractal, and we're just constantly sort of pushing through and evolving.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm writing that one down, that's a good one. Alright, nice. Is there anything else you'd like to add or put into this one? Or?
No.
Definitely like to have you on again one day.
Okay.
You'd like to be on? What do you think?
Sid's theory?
Sid's theory? Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. We went through a bit about that early, but yeah. I'll go for another podcast as well.
Alright.
Awesome. Cool. Alright. Well, thanks very much for being on. And again, thanks for having your house to do it.
Edit any shitty bits. I actually think I said fuck quite today. Did I?
I think that's one. That's all right.
So is that okay? You're going to turn this off now?
Yeah, I'm going to turn it off. We'll just say goodbye and thank you to everyone first. Say goodbye, George. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Adrian.
Alright, cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks. That was awesome.
Yeah, good. You like it?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Cool.